Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank where I climb the online series 11 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're trying out a really fun team featuring Seismitoad. This was featured by a player called Taka, so thank you to him. I've linked his Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental and a paste of the team. And yeah, Seismitoad I think is a really interesting pick in Series 11. It is a very strong Dynamax option, and it actually counters a lot of the most common Pokemon in Series 11, such as Incineroar and Regieleki. In addition, a lot of the common restricted, Seismitoad actually does pretty well into, because one, you can boost your special defense via Max Quake, and obviously a lot of the common restricteds in Series 11 are special attackers. And then you also really do well into some of the common ones like Zacian, for example, right? Which you can just one-shot with a Life Orb Max Quake. So Seismitoad in general, I think it's just really interesting. It obviously has a big glaring weakness to grass-type Pokemon, especially Rillaboom. So the rest of the team is really designed in a way to help you, try to beat Rillaboom. So you have Seismitoad and you have Kyogre. This is a really fun combo in itself because you can give Kyogre special defense boost, and it already has the Assault Vest, and this Kyogre is pretty bulky as well. So you can just further increase its bulk, and you can use Max Ooze from Sludge Bomb to increase Kyogre's special attack, allowing it to do even more damage with Water Spout and Origin Pulse. So Assault Vest is a really fun item on Kyogre here because it just allows Kyogre to hang around for a little bit longer. This allows you to lead Seismitoad and Kyogre a lot more reliably. You don't have to worry about your Kyogre getting one-shot by just like a Thunderbolt from Life Orb Regieleki, for example, or Choice Pack Seleki. So that duo in itself is really fun. And like I mentioned, Rillaboom is a big issue for Seismitoad, so as a result, you've got Pokemon like Cinderace, Tapu Lele, and Kartana to deal with it. I do know that the Kartana on this team is a little bit slower, but it has a little bit more bulk than you might be used to seeing. And also has Chople Berry, which means it gives you a slightly better matchup into a lot of fighting-type Pokemon like Urshifu, for example. The key thing to note is that against Rillabooms, you're probably going to want to prioritize playing around Cinderace and Kartana. You'll probably often want to bring Kyogre and Seismitoad, but you want to make sure you can either deal enough damage early on so that like Rillaboom isn't much of an issue, or just eliminate Rillaboom immediately and then Seismitoad can come out and really thrive. Typically with Seismitoad, it's like if you can get rid of like the one or two potential grass type Pokemon on your opponent's team, it can just one shot pretty much everything else while not worrying about taking a ton of damage in return. So yeah. The Cinderace here is Lumberry, so that's helpful against, Thunderwave Thundurus, for example, or Spores from something like Focus Sash Amoonguss, and of course Venusaur, which is very, very common in this format with Sleep Powder. And finally, you've got Tailwind Whimsicott. Do know that there's no Protect on this team, or on this Whimsicott, and part of that is because you've got Tapu Lele, so you can use Lele as a way to deter Fake Out. You also have Helping Hand, which is really nice, because you can go for a Helping Hand and like a max move with any of Seismitoad, Kyogre, Cinderace, or Kartana to just, try to pick up a one-hit KO on something. And then finally, you have Trick Room. Now, Trick Room is, probably pretty surprising to see here, and basically, when you're using Trick Room, it's going to be most of the time to reverse opposing Trick Rooms, or in some rare scenarios, maybe you go up against a team with Tailwind, and you expect them to Tailwind turn one, so you Trick Room to try to get the speed advantage. And Trick Room is obviously a really, really tough archetype to go up against for a team like this, because you have so few Pokemon with Protect. It's only Kartana, and most of the Pokemon are really frail as well, right? Like, especially because you get to max one option. Everything else can get one shot fairly easily. Pokemon like Cinderace, Lele, Kartana, Whimsicott, like all of those are just not very bulky Pokemon. So yeah, you do want to watch out for opposing Trick Room setups and try to stop them if possible. So yeah, I think Seismitoad is a really cool pick in Series 11. I think this team builds around it so well and covers for its weaknesses super well. So I'm excited to dive into this one. Thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. And question of the day, I'm curious for any of you that have played through the Diamond and Pearl remakes whether or not you've actually tried battling online yet. Now, unfortunately, there's no online ladder like there is in Sword and Shield, so the best way to battle is really to just find players, kind of like back in the day, and get battles in. And I'm trying to start that very, very soon, so curious if you've tried it out yet, and if so, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comment section below, and let's get started. Alright, getting into things here, and we're up against a Dialga team. Okay. Seismitoad generally has a pretty good matchup into Dialga, but my opponent does have Grimmsnarl, which is perhaps one of my least favorite Pokemon to play against in my time using this team. Just because Grimmsnarl is so disruptive, screens is generally annoying to deal with to begin with. I'm thinking in this one we can just go with Kyogre and Seismitoad. It's like a fairly obvious lead, but I think they don't have much to stop it. I like Lele in the back for Psychic Terrain. And then the last one is interesting. I feel like Kartana here is particularly strong since it's fast. And I can Sacred Sword. I can Leaf Blade. Cinderace would be pretty interesting as a max option here, but I don't love it because of the Intimidate from the Landorus. Although they probably don't bring Landorus into this matchup, actually. But my issue with Cinderace is, like, Max Cinderace against Max Dialga, for example. Like, Max Knuckle doesn't actually deal that much damage to a Dialga. So I think Seismitoad is just, like, the best Max option in this matchup. It's just a Grimmsnarl I have to worry about, right? Because, like, you can maybe set up Light Screen, maybe Light Screen and Reflect. And my opponent actually is going to go with Landorus. Oh, wow. Interesting. But I feel like this is an amazing lead for us. I did not expect to see this at all, but I think they were probably reading into them not bringing Landorus and then trying to play around it and maybe, like, prioritize, like, either Cinderace or Kartana. But I feel like this is, like, a dream for us. Their Landorus is faster than Kyogre, so it's good to note that. They have no switch-ins into a Max Quake onto the Dialga slot right now. Like, I don't want them to Trick Room is my main concern right now. So, honestly, I'm down to just Ice Beam Landorus, Dynamax, and then just Max Quake into Dialga. Special defense boosts are pretty valuable here as well. What I don't want to do is, like, Max Geyser into Landorus and have Landorus switch out into Amoonguss and then let Dialga click Trick Room. Because I think Trick Room is the way we lose this game right now, at least given how good the lead matchup is. So I'd rather just try to deny it turn 1, even though Dialga might protect, maybe it switches out, that's fine. Landorus is never going to KO us with a single Earthquake. It could Dynamax and then Max Rockfall, which I actually think would be a pretty strong play for them right now, and if they're AV, then, you know, they'll take Ice Beam decently well. But then the thing is, you know, you get a Max Rockfall off, sure. Seismitoad the next turn can just Max Geyser anyway and change the weather back to rain. And the Kyogre here is a little bit bulkier. So we are going to max the Seismitoad. See if they end up maxing either Pokemon. Okay, they are going to commit the Dynamax. So let's see who it is. I'd be happy to see Max Dialga. It's probably Max Landorus here. Okay, it is Max Dialga. I was going to say Max Landorus would be really risky because, you know, you could just faint immediately before you even get an attack off and then you literally wouldn't have a Dynamax to play with. But that's fine, right? This means Trick Room doesn't go up. I do just get a free Max Quake off, so that's fantastic. Especially defense boost on both Pokemon here is also so nice. And that almost just knocks out Dialga. It doesn't get a one-hit KO, but that's amazing damage, and I'm very pleased with that. So, maybe an Earthquake here with Telepathy Dialga. Bulldoze. Okay. That's pretty neat. Especially because that actually does pretty good damage in a Kyogre, despite us being bulky. They're going to Worm Wind, but the thing is, if you target Kyogre here, I'm going to survive because of the Assault Vest and the Special Defense boost. They end up going for Seismitoad, that's also fine. And my only fear now is if we don't one-shot Landorus, and then now with the speed drop, they outspeed us. That could be a little bit problematic. But Bulldoze is really cool. It's not an option I was expecting at all. Nice, we get the one-hit KO. I mean, that's probably Choice Scarf Landorus with Bulldoze and Earthquake. That would make the most sense to me. So, yeah, Seismitoad, I think, generally has a really good matchup here, especially into my opponent's Restricted, so we're already off to a really strong start. The other beautiful thing is that it walls a Lecky completely, so, like, normally, I think the scary thing in a position like this is, oh, you know, you can bring out a Lecky and then just drop my speed again. It's going to be Urshifu, but we do have a switch into Tapu Lele, which sets up Psychic Terrain. Meaning, well, actually, I don't think a Sucker Punch KOs us from this range anyway. And I've got Lele and Kartana, both which will outspeed my opponent's side. So I don't mind going for an Origin Pulse here, and then just a Max Quake into Dialga again. I think Dialga probably Max Guards here, but they don't. Okay, cool. The reason why I went for that play is because I want to, like, let's say they Max Guard, that's fine, right? It means Dialga doesn't attack for the turn. And in that position, Urshifu can only target one of two Pokemon. So I'm thinking, even if you Max Guard, maybe you Wicked Blow. If you knock out Kyogre, then I get a free switch into Lele or Kartana. And if you knock out Seismitoad, well, I'll get an Origin Pulse and bring your Urshifu down to a Focus Sash. Or just KO it if it's not sashed. So that's kind of the logic there. Yep, they're going to click Wicked Blow here. This is the only scary thing. I clicked Origin Pulse rather than, like, Water Spout. But I didn't feel confident in Water Spout because, you know, there was a decent chance Kyogre was going to get hit that turn. So let's see. Okay, an Origin Pulse connects. Perfect. Given the Assault Vest and the Special Defense boost on this Kyogre, I think this makes this endgame very strong for us. Seismitoad just was so good in pressuring from turn 1 of this game. So, out of the remaining Pokemon, you know, they had Amoonguss, they had Lecky, I've got Assault Vest on this, which I think generally is valuable, and we have Chople Berry on Kartana, so I think I'm just going to bring Kartana out right now, because I can definitely take a close combat, even if you go, like, Electro Web in a close combat, and it is going to be Regieleki as my opponent's last one. We obviously just saw the Focus Sash on Urshifu, so Regieleki can't have the Focus Sash, also good to note that. Returns a Rain, I have +2 Special Defense. I thought it was a +1, I forgot about the second boost, which is so nice here. I'm gonna just Origin Pulse then, and then just Leaf Blade into Urshifu. The only scary thing here is I'm going for Origin Pulse right now, which obviously isn't 100% accurate. They're gonna Thunderbolt, but with the Salt Vest and the Special Defense boost, we take that like an absolute champ. And they're actually gonna close combat and split their damage, so yeah. That should just be GG, because we'll just pick up a double knockout now. Even if we miss Origin Pulse on Regieleki, at this point Regieleki can't knock out everything quickly enough. And this is the beauty of the Assault Vest Kyogre plus the Seismitoad combo. Like, Seismitoad is sweet because it gets a really nice offensive move pool, and you can also max Ooze or max Quake to further like boost Kyogre specifically, which is sweet. One thing to note is, as you can see, the Kartana on this team is a little bit slower, but because we have Chople Berry, there wasn't too much to worry about this turn, as Origin Pulse connects, and that's a one-hit KO. Perfect. So, in the end, they didn't bring the Grimmsnarl, but that's still, like, I still wanted Tapu Lele here because, to just prevent Grimmsnarl. Like, if my opponent leads Grimmsnarl, Lele is just a really good switch-in on turn 1 to deter them from going for anything like Fake Tears or Trick, or even a Fake Out, for example. So, yeah. Ultimately, I think the lead matchup I was really surprised by. I didn't expect to have such a good lead, and we were able to just not take too much damage, and the main thing was like having the speed advantage relative to our opponent's Dynamax, right? So in the end, like, we did trade Dynamaxes, but I essentially got more out of it because I not only got a knockout onto the Landorus before they were able to pick up a knockout onto anything, but I also got 2 special defense boosts on Kyogre, really setting it up for the late game here. So this is why a strong lead matchup often can really dictate like the pace of the battle, and in this one, there also just wasn't much my opponent could have done, especially when they led Landorus immediately. I think one interesting play you could make from my opponent's position was actually Max Guard Dialga turn 1 and then just Bulldoze. Actually, I don't really know if that accomplishes very much, honestly. So, yeah, I think the lead was just so good for us, and I think my opponent was probably reading into me not expecting them to bring out the Landorus. But I felt like Kyogre and Seismitoad was generally pretty safe, even against like the scarier combos on their team. Seismitoad, I think, just had a pretty favorable matchup against almost anything my opponent could lead. So I felt pretty comfortable with that, and it ended up even working out better than I'd expected. So yeah, let's just keep it going. Second game of the day, and it is a Calyrex Ice Rider team. Okay. So the first thing to note is that they don't have a single water resist, or immunity, or storm drain. So water spam in general is really strong here. Now, I think the main thing to watch out for in this matchup is Trick Room from the Dusclops, and like Calyrex Ice Rider sweeping under Trick Room. So that's going to be the main thing we're going to want to deny. There's a lot that I can do. Cinderace and Kyogre is interesting because I can like max Darkness into Water Spout to just KO Dusclops. If I'm my opponent, what would I go with? Like, Seismitoad looks amazing here, right? It destroys Regieleki, Koko, Incineroar, and Landorus. Whimsicott on this team also has Trick Room, so I can actually use it to just reverse any Trick Room they go for on turn 1 of the battle. Honestly, I think Kyogre and Seismitoad here is fine. I guess my only issue with this is they could lead Incin plus Dusclops right now. I really don't want to let them get Trick Room up. Because I think the only way they can win this game is with Trick Room. So I'm actually going to try leading Lele plus Kyogre. Seismitoad in the back. We don't need to force it too early on. And then Kartana's actually quite good here because of Chople Berry and its decent defense. Like, well, actually, Calyrex Ice just ignores the Chople Berry anyway, I suppose. But I don't think a Max Knuckle would one-shot us anyway, so we'll see. And if they go with the fast mode of their team, that's fine, right? I can just pivot into Seismitoad on turn 2, or even turn 1 and just hard switch into it. So we'll see. Either way, though, I think like Seismitoad generally is really good here, and water type damage in general is also really strong. And it's going to be Incineroar and Regieleki. Okay, so this was the idea behind leading Lele to block Fake Out on turn 1. And because we're Assault Vested on the Kyogre, this is actually incredible for us, I would say. Because I guess the interesting thing here is if you're my opponent, maybe you consider just maxing Regieleki straight up right now, but I'm not even sure a max Lightning KOs AV Kyogre. So, like, in this position, I don't mind just going for a Dazzling Gleam and then Origin Pulse, I think. I could switch out into Seismitoad. That's another possibility. But I feel like Kyogre is just in a really sweet position right now, and even if you one-shot Kyogre, that would imply that you committed your Dynamax, and if you max Regieleki on turn 1, yeah, maybe you get a quick knockout, but then Seismitoad's in a really good spot, right? I get a free switch it into it, I can just max it. The only downside is, unfortunately, max speed Seismitoad, yeah, or this Seismitoad in the rain does not outspeed max speed Regieleki. Okay, so Incineroar is going to pivot out. They're going to go into Koko. Okay, so that makes sense. You do set up the electric terrain this way. But the thing is, now we know 3 of 4 of my opponent's Pokemon, and they're obviously really weak to Seismitoad, right? Seismitoad actually one-shots almost all of it. So they are going to commit the Dynamax into the Regieleki, which I think is a smart play. But in this matchup, I'm willing to lose a couple of resources early on. I do think we probably could have gotten away with switching Kyogre out into Seismitoad, because there wasn't much that would threaten us with damage. Now, with electric terrain up, I think Regieleki will one-shot the Kyogre, so this is a strong play by my opponent. But I still feel fine about our spot, honestly. I'm going to go for Lightning. And they do target the Lele instead, so probably reading into Kyogre protecting or switching out into Seismitoad, which I think makes a lot of sense, but now puts us in an even better position. There's Life Orb. Origin Pulse does miss. Okay, but that's fine. We hit the Koko. That looks like AV Koko to me. Okay, so I can bring out Seismitoad. Honestly, I think here we can get away with just maxing, going for Max Quake onto Regieleki, and then switching Kyogre out into Kartana. Because Kyogre plus Seismitoad is like the main duo to play towards in this matchup, I think. So it's a little bit unfortunate we miss Regieleki there, but it wouldn't have knocked out anyway, and a Max Quake should one-shot it from this range anyway, so I don't think it's actually a big deal. The main question I have now is how fast is your Regieleki? What I'm nervous about is you could Max Guard this turn, Nature's Madness with Koko, and then Max Strike the next turn. If they don't have Max Strike here, I think they're in a really tough spot. So let's see. Oh, and they're not max speed. Okay, that should effectively win us the game, honestly. Cool. It is so wild, though, to, like, Regieleki's base speed is just so high. Like, the fact that we have a Pokemon under Rain, you know, at double speed, still not potentially outspeeding Regieleki is kind of wild. Because I do believe the Seismitoad doesn't outspeed even after. Yeah, it was just Nature's Madness, so makes sense. As soon as you see Assault Vest on Koko, you should assume, like, Volt Switch, Electro Web, Nature's Madness. Those are just, like, the most common attacks on it. And at this point, there's just no way they can deal with Seismitoad, I think. So Seismitoad is in a very, very good spot. Yeah, I'm just double-checking Seismitoad's speed, because like I said, I'm pretty sure it doesn't outspeed max speed Regieleki, even in rain. Yeah, we hit 252, and Regieleki hits, what, like 277 as the speed stat, so luckily for us, they weren't max speed. The game may have been a little bit harder, but Seismitoad just walls Regieleki so hard, I'm not sure they really could have done much there anyway. So in this position, I am just going to Geyser into the Incineroar slot and Leaf Blade. We have a special defense boost on this Kartana, so Koko's not knocking it out, even with like a Thunderbolt. They're just going to go for Fake Out. Protecting there may have actually been smarter, but it's fine. At this point, I just don't really see a good way to win from my opponent's perspective. I think it was probably smarter for me to target the Koko slot here, just because Incineroar doesn't really scare Seismitoad at all. But I did want to cover for the option of them just like clicking Flare Blitz into Kartana this turn. And they just go for another Madness. Perfect. Cool. Now at this point, I think Seismitoad should actually just one-shot. Oh, Koko actually can't protect because it's Assault Vest. So I was going to say, if it weren't AV and it protected, we could one-shot it. But yeah. What's interesting here is actually like whether or not I want to target the Koko slot, because I do have a guaranteed knockout onto it. I guess, yeah, like Calyrex can Trick Room, but it's not beating Kyogre in this endgame anyway. So I think we take the free knockout in front of us. I don't know if Max Use is actually a guaranteed knockout, so I'm not going to risk it. I'd rather just go for the Max Quake here. See, okay, the only awkward thing is playing around weakness policy. So, you know what? I'm actually down to Max Geyser Calyrex here and just Smart Strike it. I don't think Calyrex can survive the double up there, especially because we know it's not Assault Vested. And if it, you know, protected there, that's fine. The main thing is I don't want to activate weakness policy unless... Yeah, actually, no. I just don't want to activate weakness policy, right? The only risk in this play is that they could have crit like a Thunderbolt onto Kartana or gotten a paralysis, but I generally felt fine. So this was an example of a matchup in which like typing really matters, right? And it's similar to the last game, like my opponent didn't really have too many options right from turn 1 because Seismitoad just like put on so much pressure and they didn't really have any safe switch-ins. And in this game as well, like they have no water resistances or immunities, making it really easy to just lead like Seismitoad stuff, right? So the main, like I said, the main goal was to deny Trick Room, and I felt pretty comfortable. Like, if they didn't bring Trick Room, I thought we had a really good shot at winning the game, right? So it's like, if we can hard deny Trick Room, and that's like their only real, like, strong path to victory, then even if they don't bring Trick Room, it should be pretty favorable for us, and that was exactly what happened here, right? The main thing is, like, my opponent committed a Dynamax to Regieleki, and Seismitoad just loves that, right? Because, like, part of the reason why I think Seismitoad is such an interesting Pokemon in Series 11 right now is because so many teams have Incineroar, Regieleki, Landorus, and Seismitoad can one-shot all of those, even if they Dynamax, for example. So it really limits your options, and then, yeah, maxing Eleki. The turn 1 play, I think, was actually really strong from my opponent. Had they targeted Kyogre, things could have been even scarier. Just because Kyogre, I think, was, you know, bulkier and offered more damage in this matchup. But the main thing is I was willing to even lose Kyogre to get a free switch it into Seismitoad. And as you can see, that turn, they did not target Kyogre on turn 1, right? So I was like, might as well just get free damage to start this game. I do understand why my opponent maxed Eleki, because I think from their perspective, the lead was already just so tough from them, where if you don't Dynamax on turn 1, you might just lose the game immediately, because that Incineroar was completely useless given the Lele lead. So Incineroar was always going to go down to a Kyogre Origin Pulse if it hits. And if you switch out and you don't get a knockout onto Kyogre or Eleki, or sorry, a Kyogre or Lele, you essentially have to give up a Pokemon on the first turn, right? And it's like also if Eleki doesn't Dynamax there, you also just get knocked out. So I think like the Dynamax on turn 1 makes sense from my opponent's perspective because there was like no other way around it basically. And so it's like might as well put on the pressure early. But the main thing is if you can get your opponent to Dynamax early and then you have something in the back that can answer it really well, Seismitoad really being the best, you know, example here, then it puts you in a pretty favorable position. So yeah, let's just keep it going. All right, third match of the day, and it is Solgaleo. I think I actually might have run into this opponent earlier today while practicing with this team. So Solgaleo is very interesting. I think Grimmsnarl in general is just not very fun to go up against, like I mentioned. One thing that's interesting, I think, like, I always try to force Seismitoad too much in all the games that I was playing with this team. But Seismitoad is just, like, so bad into Rillaboom. And so it's, like, playing around Rillaboom here is going to be really important. So what do I want to go with? I think leading Cinderace here is actually okay because it's really good into the Solgaleo, but also pressures like the Entei, for example. Or sorry, the Rillaboom and the Grimmsnarl. Leading here is just interesting in general, but I actually like, I think Cinderace and Kyogre with Lele and Seismitoad in the back. I'm just trying to put on like as much offensive pressure as possible. And I think what this team does well is that you have multiple answers into Rillaboom, right? You've got Cinderace, you've got Kartana. You've got Lele to change the terrain. So a couple things to watch out for are a Gigantamax from Rillaboom on turn 1, because like we don't have many protects on this team, right? Kyogre doesn't, Seismitoad doesn't, Lele doesn't, and so when I was playing with this team earlier today, like, yeah, I went into a game where Rillaboom just maxed on turn 1, and then it just essentially one-shot everything, and I didn't even like consider that as a possibility. And so that's one thing to note. Another thing to note is, yeah, like, even if you gain terrain control early on, Rillaboom can obviously just switch out and then come back in, so do be very careful about who I Dynamax. And it's going to be Grimmsnarl and Solgaleo. Okay, so the main thing to watch out for here is obviously Sucker Punch and a weakness policy, but this lead I think is actually incredible for us. However, the only thing I'm nervous about is not knowing the Grimmsnarl moveset. Like, are you Trick? Normally I'd expect Sucker Punch dual screens. The other awkward thing here is Gmax Fireball is obviously going to do less damage because I just set up the rain, so maybe this lead was a little bit counterintuitive. You can max Quake. I've got max Darkness, but can't lower Solgaleo stats. I mean, I kind of like max Airstream in a Water Spout here, I think. But the only issue is if Grimmsnarl is actually like full Incense Trick. I don't know the Grimmsnarl set here, and that's the scary thing. And it's like Lele covers for it, and so because I have Tapu Lele just in team preview here, I think like generally it's not a safe play on turn 1 to just go for something like a trick. Because if Lele switches in, you lose so much momentum, right? And if you lose Grimmsnarl for nothing, it's not worth it. And also, given that it is a team with Solgaleo, so that typically implies Sucker Punch, and then I also would assume Reflect and Light Screen here as well. So for all those reasons, this play's like maybe a little bit risky, but I think it's a little bit less likely, like Grimmsnarl here will go for something like a trick on turn 1. And so if we can eliminate Grimmsnarl immediately, that, is pretty good. It gives Kyogre a speed boost, which is also nice. Because then, with the speed boost, I can Water Spout Solgaleo before it goes for a potential, like, Max Quake and get a special defense boost. Yeah, they just go for Reflect. Cool. That works for me. It's actually great to see Reflect here rather than Light Screen because, a lot of the damage that I have in the back is special damage, especially the Seismitoad, right? Both Seismitoad and Tapu Lele. So Grimm's going to take this pretty well, but I think Water Spout should finish it off. And the whole idea here was to just make sure I get a speed boost on the Kyogre so that it outspeeds my opponent's team right now. Okay. There we go. Water Spout in rain. Beautiful. Gets knocked out on a Grimmsnarl. The main thing is also, like with Solgaleo, we just don't want to activate Weakness Policy unless we're at a point where we can afford it to be at +2. And Max Quake there doesn't even deal 50%, so that is a really, really strong turn for us, I would argue. Solgaleo is scary, but if it's not at +2 attack, you can't really pick up one-hit KOs, and even though Cinderace is relatively frail, this works in our favor right now. Okay, so they bring in Fini. That's actually a really strong bring. You would think Rillaboom is the last one for my opponent right now, right? So the endgame is still really scary because I think Rillaboom in general just looks quite strong against us. And now my opponent has a special defense boost and Light Screen on the Solgaleo. And Reflect up. I really don't want to activate a Weakness Policy right now, so I think I'm just going to try to play around that. Max Darkness to lower stats is interesting, but I don't think we get that much value out of it this turn. I could, like... Well, it doesn't even lower Solgaleo's special defense. I don't think it's really worth it. I don't love this play. I went for Max Airstream and Thunder onto Fini. Like, I don't see much value in targeting Solgaleo because I'm not going to deal much damage to it. I also didn't want to change to, like, Fighting or Dark type here. I like being Flying type right now because, like, there's not that much my opponent can use to actually hit me for super effective damage. And even though Cinderace is relatively frail as a Pokemon, well, if you don't have super effective damage into it, actually hang around for a little bit longer. Thunder there. Oh, actually gets the knockout into Fini. Okay, I actually wasn't expecting it, but I mean, Kyogre's special attack's obviously really good, so the fact they didn't protect there is incredible. And I was just saying how there's not much to hit us for super effective, but this is the one thing, right? Max Rockfall. But it's fine, because it doesn't one-shot us, and that's what really matters here. The key thing is, this is actually really good for us, right? Because my opponent's last Pokemon should be the Rillaboom, which means now I can just, unless Rillaboom actually has Protect, I can just switch Kyogre out into Tapu Lele. That immediately wins the terrain war for us, and also sets up brain for us in this late game. And then I can also just G-Max Powerball, or Fireball the Rillaboom for a one-hit KO. Maybe it survives through the Reflect, but at this point I think we have such a major lead that that's okay. So, yep, I'm just going to Fireball here, and by switching out into Tapu Lele, even something like a Choice Band Grassy Glide now obviously won't KO Cinderace. So, yeah. This was just a really dominant position for Cinderace, and I think one mistake that I mentioned I had made a lot while trying out this team was always forcing Seismitoad to max, but with this team you have so many good max options, right? Seismitoad's good, Kyogre's good, Cinderace is good, Kartana's good as well. And so against teams that have Rillaboom, you have to play in a different way. I think just because if you end up maxing Seismitoad, you really like pigeonhole yourself, and it creates a lot more win conditions for your opponent where like all they have to do is simply try to pivot and position Rillaboom safely to beat Seismitoad. So this is good team construction, right? Because obviously Rillaboom is still one of the more common Pokemon in the format, so you need good answers against it, and that's where having things like Cinderace and Kartana really help. So I think the good thing for us here is like Grimmsnarl, yeah, sure, was able to set up screens, but it wasn't able to do too much. And the main thing is that we had so much offensive pressure on turn 1, whereas our opponent couldn't really match that. And if Solgaleo doesn't have weakness policy activated, it's a lot less scary. Now, things could have gone really poorly for us, right? Imagine my opponent just goes Sucker Punch turn 1 and then max Rockfall into Cinderace. That actually puts us in a really bad spot. So this is definitely not the easiest of matchups, and I don't think I have a great play to cover for all of the potential options that my opponent can go for on turn 1. I definitely don't love leading Seismitoad because there's a good chance my opponent leads Rillaboom in this one, and I don't think Kartana really offers much against Solgaleo either. So yeah, it's just one in which we have to try to make some smart plays, and they're like I said, I think if my opponent Sucker Punch max Rockfalls, which would be an incredibly good play, we'd be in a really tough spot. So fortunately they didn't go for that. I don't even know if they had Sucker Punch on Grim, but it is somewhat common on those stats. So either way, a fun third game, and let's look for one final one. Last one of the day. I started the recording a little bit late, so I don't know if it caught it, but they're ranked number 79 as well, and this is quite an interesting team. It's always cool to see very non-conventional teams that are high ranked or used by high ranked opponents. Kyogre, Talonflame, Blastoise, Chansey, Shedinja, Gothitelle. Oh my goodness, there's 3 ally switch users. How in the world, my Shedinja answers are actually really suspect. It's just Max Darkness or Shadow Ball from these two. Oh no. Yeah, oh no. I mean, I without a doubt have to bring Cinderace and Lele. Maybe I just lead those? I could go Talonflame, Kyogre. The alternative is use Kyogre and Seismitoad brute force through things early on and then end the game with Lele and the Cinderace. Part of me also feels like I should bring Whimsicott to match their Tailwind if they go Talonflame plus Kyogre. But I do think I definitely need Cinderace and Tapu Lele, because otherwise I actually just hard lose to Shedinja. Not hard lose, but I won't have a good matchup against Shedinja. If I only have one Pokemon that can hit it for super effective damage, that's awful. And even with these two, I don't feel great, truthfully. So Shedinja's a Pokemon that I don't feel like was super common in Series 8 or Series 11, but, was pretty strong in Series 10. Okay, it's Gothitelle and Talonflame. I'm actually very okay with this. This doesn't put on any offensive pressure, and I have so much damage pressure on my end right now, which is great. Mainly worried about Hypnosis. Fake out Tailwind is a possibility. Tailwind Hypnosis is a possibility. Honestly, I am down to just Water Spout and Muddy Water turn 1. I don't want to commit a Dynamax, because I don't think I need to right now. Talonflame switches out, probably into Shedinja. Yeah. Ah, that's so smart. Okay, the good thing is that I have spread damage here, so they actually can't stop Muddy Water plus Water Spout. I don't have to worry about Ally Switch right now, which is good. So this is still fine, but it's scary because they've trapped us in, and I don't get any... the lead looked amazing, and suddenly we're in this spot, but there's literally nothing I could have done other than this anyway. And I'm glad I didn't commit a Dynamax. In order to win this game, we need to pick up enough knockouts where we have more resources towards the end. Okay, is this Kyogre coming in now? Yeah. I could have read into that. Maybe I should have. Because I feel like if I just Grass Out and Thunder there and knock out Kyogre, they literally have no damage for the remainder of this match. Now I have to play the Ally Switch Mind Games every turn in this battle. Accuracy drop is nice. I think last turn it was fine to make a read, but let's say they stay in and they actually click Hypnosis, that would be brutal. So we still get okay damage on a Kyogre. That looks like AB to me though. We barely did anything. Poltergeist. Okay. I was gonna say a lot of damage, but honestly it's not terrible. It's just Ally Switch now that we have to play around. Oh, wait. I didn't think about this as a Shedinja answer. Uh-huh. But I still have to get it into the right slot. I'm down, though, because Shedinja's, Okay, I covered my bases. I I actually totally didn't think about Max Hailstorm last turn. Because if we had just Max last turn and Hailstorm there and knock out Shedinja, my opponent then is just in such an awkward position. So I should have thought about this one turn sooner. Yeah, they're going to max as well. That's fine. I mean, I'm Assault Vest here. All I need is to get... Oh, you know what the problem is? If they Geyser, they're faster than us. Yeah. And I don't see... Oh, I could see them actually going for Max Lightning onto Kyogre. I wasn't sure who'd be faster here because we're not max speed. Ugh, and they don't ally switch. If they max Lightning, though, this is actually really, really good for us, but... It's just like when you play against a team like this, like, ally switch... I'd be shocked if they didn't have it on the Shedinja, but sometimes that's like a fun bluff that you could have. Nice, and they max Lightning. Okay, let's go. We have Assault Vest here, so we should survive. We might even survive that plus Poltergeist plus Hail, which would be the dream. Either way, though, this is good. This is very good. And they do go for Poltergeist. Okay, they do target Kyogre. Oh my gosh, that was close. But we are going to survive. And more importantly, Shedinja faints from Hail. I just wish I thought about that one turn sooner. Like, because going into this game, I thought it was doomed, because I was like, oh yeah, we only have Cinderace and, Tapu Lele. And if I had figured this out one turn sooner, I think we'd be in a really, really fantastic position, actually. But it's fine. Okay, so Lele's not nearly as important. Gothitelle in the end from there and really doesn't scare me. I know I'm faster. So here, like, I think they should Tailwind, right? But I'm down to max Geyser into Talonflame and then switch Seismitoad out into Tapu Lele. Mainly because I don't think Lele offers us very much at this point in the battle anyway. Like, the main reason I brought Lele was to deal with Shedinja initially. Yeah. Kyogre hanging on is very clutch, though. I'm very happy to see that. Okay, so that effectively gives you the trap. But that's okay, right? Like, this means my Kyogre actually gets an attack off, which in itself I wasn't expecting. And now you can't fake me out next turn. I know you're Assault Vest, so then I can just bring out Seismitoad and just Grass Knot Psychic the Kyogre slot. I feel like the main thing is my opponent's team relies so much around playing... Like, you don't have much offense other than the Kyogre, right? It's amazing damage from Max Geyser. I could have gone for Max Lightning, but I just didn't think it would KO their Kyogre with Electric Terrain being... sorry, with them being Assault Vested. They go for a Geyser of their own, which is totally okay. And they actually target my Kyogre. Okay, that's interesting. So they wanted to set up the rain, but I feel like that actually benefits us, right? Because now I just get a free switch it into Seismitoad. You know what I have to worry about? Ally switch from Gothitelle here as well. Ugh, that's actually really troublesome. So I could go into Cinderace. I actually think Cinderace is not a bad idea here, and I'll tell you why. Because my issue is if I bring out Seismitoad, like Seismitoad's so good against the Talonflame in the back, right? And I don't want Seismitoad to just get one shot right now, but I'm okay with either Lele or Cinderace getting one shot here. So, like, in this position, what I can go for is a high jump kick into the Kyogre and a Dazzling Gleam. If you ally switch, sure, that's fine. Yeah, there it is. Like, this team is triple ally switch. I'm sure Shedinja and Chansey both have it. But that's fine. The whole idea here is that, like... There was no way around this, right? It was guaranteed free damage, and with Dazzling Gleam, like, having spread-type damage is really nice as well. We should get the knockdown on Gothitelle, which is sweet, too. But now I kind of regret locking myself into Dazzling Gleam. Okay. And they're going to Geyser. So now my other question is... Okay, actually... No, we know we're faster than Kyogre, even if they set up Tailwind, because Rain is still up. And we know they're Assault Vest. So Grass Knot should always just KO, right? Because... Our Kyogre was faster than their Kyogre. We knew that. This is 118 speed. Seismitoad is 126. So even if they Tailwind right now, because the rain is up, our Seismitoad would just outspeed their Kyogre. which is huge, because it means I can just Grass Knot and Dazzling Gleam here. Yeah. This is such an interesting team, though, because, like, it revolves so much around Assault Vest Kyogre, and, like, there's not much more damage outside of that. But this is a interesting way of, like, figuring out clever solutions on the fly, because I totally didn't even think about Max Hailstorm initially. So, unless I'm missing something here, we should just outspeed and KO. Oh, actually, I don't know if Grass Knot KOs. I guess that's the problem. Let's see. Oh, boy. Okay, it's just Scald. Nice. Okay, Lele hangs on. Does it burn? Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. It actually hung on. I mean, unless... Does Brave Bird KO Seismitoad from this range? I wouldn't think so. I'm really nervous about missing Muddy Water here, so I'm just going to Sludge Bomb instead, because I think that should KO. Especially with Dazzling Gleam Chip as well. And they're going to have to take Recoil here. Okay, they protect. That's fine. Nah, that Poison's really scary, though, because it means they have another win condition now. I should have maybe considered clicking Muddy Water there, but I really thought Grass Knot was going to just get the knockout there onto them, yeah. I think it's always Sludge Bomb here, though. Does Life Orb Sludge Bomb actually KO Talonflame here? I'm not 100% confident. Because you could Brave Bird Lele here and then Brave Bird the Seismitoad after I've taken more Life Orb damage. I think Sludge Bomb is fine. Okay, there's Brave Bird. They do target Seismitoad. Okay, we survive. Wow, that was such a crazy game. I'm just really glad they didn't ally switch that turn. We get a crit there, but that plus Gleam was always going to finish it off. Like we actually got the Max Hailstorm off, and they went for Max Lightning that turn. Man, the margins in this game were so thin. But Seismitoad came out to be so clutch once again, so this was an amazing episode for Seismitoad. I'm really, really happy about it, and so, yeah, glad to show off what this Pokemon can do in this format. This last team was definitely very unconventional, so it's really interesting. Like, you have a super, super bulky Assault Vest Kyogre, and the idea is that Kyogre just in rain still does so much damage that you can, like, the Gothitelle trapping things in is really interesting as well, right? So, with the lead that my opponent had, the idea is that, like, you just, you know, against really passive leads, right, you just have Gothitelle and Shedinja, you trap things in and slowly whittle away, and then, like, with Ally Switch on both Pokemon, potentially it makes things even more difficult. So what was really good for us here is that we had a strong lead, we had good spread type damage, so I didn't have to worry about Ally Switch as much, and then the main thing was you were able to eliminate Shedinja via a non-conventional method, because the main issue in dealing with Shedinja here is that if I were to use regular attacks for it, surely has Focus Sash, so I'd have to spend 2 turns just to knock out Shedinja, and that's 2 turns of calling Ally Switch correctly as well. That just adds so much more variance. So I saw the Hailstorm play, I was like, okay, we can go for it, and fortunately enough, it paid off for us. I did think I missed an opportunity, the turn like Gothitelle switch out into Kyogre, if I just Grass Knot Thunder there. See, the thing is, they could have Ally Switched there, but they didn't. So maybe like Water Spout and Grass Knot there, right? Because then I split my damage, where it's like, okay, well, even if you Ally Switch, I still get a little bit of chip onto the Kyogre. Whereas, like, I didn't need to Muddy Water there, because the Gothitelle was always going to feint to a Grass Knot Water Spout combo anyway. So I think, like, Muddy Water was kind of not relevant there. Not relevant, but it just wasn't, like, the most consistent play there. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much, as always, for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right. Peace.